What the fuck? Oh my god. Everything seems to be coming up Millhouse today.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So last time was so horrible and annoying that when I signed into Skype, I took note of the last time, the date on our last Skype call was some point in January.
Wow.
6 months.
Well, we did. Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, we did do that one in person. What was that like? April, wasn't it? It was your dad's birthday.
Yeah, and that was the rage-inducing technical failure.
Yeah, we talked for 2 hours and we didn't get anything for it.
Yep, got complete garbled nonsense.
I don't even remember what we talked about. I think we bitched about Ghostbusters for a while.
Yeah, well, conveniently, we're gonna do that today
Cool.
because it's a way bigger story now.
Is it?
Eh, I think it's peaked, but well, what a peak it is.
Well, when does it come out?
I want to say July 15th or so,
Hmm.
somewhere around there.
Well, yeah, I noticed the cast is doing the talk show circuit
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, I
So
think
that's
they're
great.
on Jimmy Kimmel either last night or tonight or something.
Yeah, I think it was last night because I saw a clip.
Yeah, yeah.
Something. I don't know. Well, for some reason his show was out like 8 o'clock, and they were on it. Isn't he like a late night show? But I don't know why it was on at 8.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. That's weird.
It was weird.
Well, yeah, I guess, clearly we're already recording, and, I guess we have to probably address the fact that it's been at least 6 months since we have recorded one of these, and I'm not entirely sure how long since, the most recent episode or the last episode that was posted was put up, but basically this is just going to be number 19. The last episode posted was 18, so we're just going to pick up from here and move forward.
Yes.
And we're not really getting back on track, we're sort of building a new track.
Yeah. We're starting over again. Sort of. Not really. I mean,
It's like version 1.5, I guess.
yeah.
Maybe like
Yeah,
1.25, I don't know.
yeah, we're not quite on version 2 yet.
Yeah.
That's when we'll have like more money and have like a better produced
Money, money, money,
podcast. But
money.
money, that's what it's all about, man. The money.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, I guess having said that, uh, let the topics begin. So we'll go back to Ghostbusters.
Okay.
It's a personal, uh, I guess, thorn in my side. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure how big of a deal or how much you care about it. I mean, I don't. It's not like a life-altering thing for me, but I'd like to think that obviously we've talked about like movie reboots and how bad they are and unnecessary they are off and on since the beginning of the show. And I'd like to think that, um, the attention that this has gotten and the huge controversy, quote unquote, that it's caused is a sign that the tide may be somewhat beginning to turn in terms of the public's willingness to continue to put up with unnecessary reboots just because fucking Hollywood says they're gonna, we're doing it, so fuck you, consume it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. That's my biggest, I guess, stake in the outcome. Um, Everything else is kind of in descending order from there. So I don't know how you feel about that, but
Well, I feel the same. I mean, we've griped about it, like you said, time and time again about the Hollywood reboot, and on top of the this being another reboot, it is basically a beloved movie franchise that they're messing with, and I think that's where a lot of like the general public backlash, it kind of goes hand in hand the backlash that's going on. It goes hand in hand with it being a reboot, and not only is it a reboot, it's the reboot of a movie that is like universally like loved and accepted. And there's absolutely no reason to reboot this idea. That's really what it comes down to. And like you said, the tide is kind of turning. But even so, they're cranking out the reboots again and again, and it's not just the movies. It's I posted on my Facebook a few weeks ago a reboot for Lethal Weapon, which they're making into a TV show, which is nonsense.
Right. Yeah, did you see the
there's
MacGyver one too? Ugh.
yeah, MacGyver's one. I just like it doesn't make any sense. Like in I guess what makes it so vexing is that like why can't somebody come up with a new idea and go with that. I mean, have we done all the ideas we could possibly do? No. I mean, I know there's like a million books you could make into a movie. You know so yeah, this I kind of feel like you do with the reboot. I'm just sick and tired of it. I mean, they're gonna reboot Spider-Man again. This will be the third time
Right.
within like a decade, which makes no sense. Yeah, so that's where I stand. I'm definitely with you on that one.
I think there's a lot of things that make the Ghostbusters situation kind of unique, and I think contribute to the fact that it's getting such a large amount of attention and whatever. Um, it's people are quick to dismiss it as like, oh, internet bitching or butthurt fanboys or whatever
Yeah.
slang term you want to throw at it. Um, and it's like any like hot topic. There's a certain percentage of those kind of people. There's a certain percentage of like the cliched element in every issue. Yes. Are there like people that are just bitching about, oh, you ruined my childhood? Absolutely. But are they like the vocal majority? Absolutely not. Um, the big thing that's being used to defend the Ghostbusters issue, or I guess shield it from criticism, is the concept of misogyny or sexism, because it's a all female cast, or the
Yeah.
main Ghostbusters are. So that's being used as this kind of transparent shield against anybody. Like if you have anything to say against it, if you have any reason that you dislike it or express any dissatisfaction with the idea at any level, then you're a sexist of some type. Um, it's you remember that email hack that Sony had around the time of that North Korea movie that Seth Rogen and James Franco did? There was
Oh
this
yeah.
big
Yeah.
thing where like they blamed the North Korean government for infiltrating Sony or some horse shit. But
Yeah.
when that all happened, a lot of the emails that were being sent back and forth between a woman named Amy Pascal, who's the head of Sony, and Paul Feig, who's directing this Ghostbusters reboot, a lot of their emails about the pre-production like were leaked. And from like minute one, if you read them, it shows that this woman Amy Pascal, and I mean in turn Sony as a company, were pretty much their first objective was just to build a movie around an agenda, around pushing like feminism and like I mean, it's one thing to kind of drink the Kool-Aid or whatever, if you like the idea, but once stuff like that becomes public knowledge, I don't know how you defend that. I don't know how you. It's why are you surprised when people are insulted when you don't put story first, or you're remaking an established intellectual property, and you're not putting like the well-being of that property first. You're putting an agenda first, and everything else is just kind of coming later as an afterthought. And it shows. I don't know if you've watched the trailer. There's like 5 trailers total now available for this movie. 2 domestic, 2 international, and I think a UK only trailer. And it shows in every one of them that it's just a completely poorly made, like lowest common denominator humor, like crappy effort. Like basically just a typical modern Hollywood comedy effort. Big budget, Um, So it's just amazing that there is, and again, I don't know how much of it's like how much of the defense for it in that way is legit, but it's amazing to me that it exists at all when there's knowledge out like that. Sony's already been caught selectively deleting comments on the YouTube trailer for it to shape the sexism narrative, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. It's just, it's amazing. It's one of the, I think the most interesting part of it is, or the funniest part of it is, it is number 9 on the most disliked videos, period, of any kind on YouTube and YouTube
Hmm.
history. And there's, I looked at a top 30 list for that earlier. There's no other movie trailer on that list. Ghostbusters is the only one. So I was like, all right, let's look at the top 100. No other movie trailer in that either. And then I looked at the top 200. No other movie trailer. So that's
Wow.
where I gave up.
Yeah, I wouldn't go any further.
But
Enough
I mean,
said.
what does that say? That's insane.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, definitely the whole sexism issue seems to be like just a thinly veiled excuse for damage control, where it's like, oh my god, everybody hates this. How can we shape it? Like you said, it's basically like shaping their narrative still by
Right.
using, the thing. And, we talked about this before too. That you know, if you criticize anything that has to do with like women, or if you like criticize like Hillary Clinton, if you say like, oh, I think Hillary Clinton's going to be a bad president because blah, you're automatically considered sexist. But I mean, there's a big difference between, if you say something like Hillary Clinton's going to be a bad president because she's a woman, yeah, that's sexist. But if you say she's a bad president because her foreign policy is poor or something, you know what I mean? That's not being misogynistic. That's criticizing, her work. And it's the same thing with this movie. Like I've said time and again that I have no problem with an all female cast in anything. My problem is they're redoing Ghostbusters. It has nothing to do, with women being the leads or there being too many women in it or something like that. It's not that. That's ridiculous. And just because that doesn't look interesting to me. It looks like it's like you said, it's like typical Hollywood comedy, big budget, lowest common denominator type of humor. But if you say that in public, it's like, oh well, you're automatically a sexist because it's an all female lead cast. So if you don't like the movie, it must be because they're women.
Right.
And like we've said that time and time again, that's not what it is. But yeah, it seems like the sexism thing, and like you said with those emails, from right off the bat, they wanted to push, oh, let's make a movie that's, empowering to women, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's been done time and time again. But using Ghostbusters as a vehicle for that is kind of, insulting to me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. Just make it, like you said, like, they did that Bridesmaids movie where it was an all female cast, it was a comedy.
Yeah.
Do something like that. Do something else. Do a different idea. Do a new idea. It doesn't matter to me. Just, why are you fucking with Ghostbusters? It's so stupid. And I'm surprised. I read that Dan Aykroyd actually gave it like a pretty good review, and I was kind of surprised that I'm like, oh man, he must have been caught up in the in the damage control, or like they must have paid him to say it or something. I don't even know, but I was kind of surprised. I was shocked
Well,
that.
yeah, that's part of what's being seen as basically Sony's attempt to circle the wagon, so to speak. To defend it.
Mm,
I mean, he's got a cameo in the movie. I'm not entirely sure if he has another credit on a producer credit of some type. I'm not sure, but he stands to benefit on some level financially from it. I mean, he's the majority original creator of Ghostbusters.
yeah.
Um, and part of the email leaks revealed that Bill Murray specifically was sort of forced into participation in this movie under
Mm,
threat of like lawsuit, and basically all of them are contractually obligated to promote it positively now. So in addition to Dan Aykroyd coming out and showering praise on it, which fools nobody, Paul Feig, the
mm.
director, has actually like gone so far as to call fans assholes on Twitter. He said his exact quote was, "Geek culture is home to some of the biggest assholes I've ever met in my life, especially after being attacked by them for months because of this Ghostbusters project." Judd Apatow, who's a producer on the movie, I didn't realize that until he started chiming in, came out recently and said that basically people who don't like this movie they must be Trump supporters, which again is like another little sneaky backdoor way to imply that they're misogynist or anti-women.
Yeah.
Um, but it's funny you bring up Hillary Clinton because there is no more perfect fucking segue. I mean, these two topics are linked. I think that it's no coincidence, and it's kind of fascinating that there's like this is like the year. I think I said it on an earlier episode. That misogyny, in my opinion, is the most overused word of the last year, and this is definitely it's like the year of the fucking misogyny shield or whatever. It's the
Yeah.
same. Every criticism being leveled at Ghostbusters is being, or the defense for it is the same exact tactics that are being used for anybody who has anything remotely negative to say about Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
Um, I just can't believe it worked. I mean, to me, it doesn't work for a lot of people, but I can't believe it's like just the same kind of, I guess, talking point. I don't know, it's the same tired defense is being just used over and over and over.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's like set it straight. Misogyny is a real thing,
Absolutely.
and it's something that you can definitely do. But you're right, it's overused. I mean, being, like the example I used before,
Right.
being misogynistic is a real thing, but it's not criticizing someone for something they do as opposed to like who they are. I mean, if that makes sense, that's kind of the difference that we're talking about. We're not saying whatever. I mean, I've already explained it, but yeah, it's just you're right. It's completely overused,
Well,
completely like utterly disastrously overused.
it's just I don't know. I guess it paints kind of a broad picture of the state of our culture in general.
Mhm.
Um, to me, it's kind of related to the stuff we talked about before, where Jerry Seinfeld, doesn't do stand up on college campuses anymore because everything's so overly politically correct.
Yeah.
Everybody's triggered and everybody has to have a safe space or whatever. It's like, um, he got sick of being called all these terms every time he told like a joke that some people found off color or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and it's the same thing here. Like you, I don't understand why if we're all human beings, we all agree that all human beings can be good or bad or anywhere in between. But why is it the case all of a sudden that if one of those human beings happens to own a vagina when they do something fucked up and you call them on it, then you're a horrible person for calling them on it because they have a vagina. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, how far
Well,
does it
yeah.
go? Like, if she goes on
Right.
national TV and fucking shoots somebody in the face, like, is that defensible? Like, how far does it go?
Hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, and it's being caught up and I guess elevated or pushed up because there is a push for equality for women. I mean, back to
Right,
the Hollywood thing. Um, there was a trend where male actors were disclosing publicly what they were making for the movie, so that the women
right,
actresses could have better bargaining power and get more money because they've been historically underpaid. And like I get it. There's definitely a gap between the equality of the sexes. I think the women do need to be there needs to be a push for feminism. There needs to be a better plan, to make things equal, like in the workplace, including Hollywood, including the office that I work in. I mean, I don't know, what other people make, but you're right. So it's kind of it's almost like it's kind of like backdoored. The misogyny thing is backdoored into this like feminism push because now it's like if you're criticizing anybody that's a woman or anything that has to do with a woman, it's like you're in the way of this push for the feminist culture that's going on.
right,
And it's completely different. And it's like it doesn't make any sense to uh, just like lump them together almost. It's like
right.
it's ridiculous. Like
That's the
I
same
don't know.
thing that most, I guess, Democrats and Hillary Clinton supporters are saying about, Bernie Sanders supporters. Like,
Yeah.
you know, concede that he's gonna not be the nominee and join Hillary because that's party unity is the only way we can beat Trump. And if you're not unified, and if you're criticizing Hillary at this point, then you're helping Trump and all this stuff. Like you're standing in the way of our objective. Well, no, like if I never understand. Like that's the part of the big. I mean, obviously we're kind of covering several topics at once here, but to me that's
Yeah.
like a huge flaw in our, among many, in our system of government is like
Mhm.
the emphasis on party
Yep.
over like the person. You know?
Well, I've said, yeah, I mean, I've definitely said stuff like that before too. I mean, it's a corrupted two-party system, and there's no chance for anybody to like get a nomination or get elected unless you say you're a Democrat or unless you say you're a Republican and you get the endorsement from that said party.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's absolutely no way. I mean, you look at like Ralph Nader. I mean, even Ross Perot's an idiot, but whatever. Same point. You talked about the Green Party candidate. What's her name? Jill Stein or
Yeah.
something like that. Is that correct? Like, there's no way in hell that woman's going to get elected president just because she's not part of the system.
Right.
And I mean, all this is. I mean, it is a lot of topics, but it does coincide with everything
They're
we're
all, yeah,
talking
they're
about.
all very very closely related. You know.
Yeah, but and then, that's one of the reasons why I don't vote. Because I mean, and everyone says, oh, they think I'm stupid or like I need to exercise my right. If it was one vote, one person, then I would probably vote.
Right.
But it's not. It's electoral college, blah 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 blah. And I kind of actually watched an old clip from George Carlin, which is funny because he said that he can bitch about the politicians and stuff because he doesn't vote. Like if you vote for
Right.
that person and they get it put in office, you have no right to complain. And people have used that reverse argument on me, like, oh, well, you can't complain about it because you didn't vote. And it's like, no, I didn't vote for this nonsense because it's nonsense.
Yeah.
So I can bitch about it all I want to.
That's exactly why you can complain because you didn't
Exactly.
fucking sign your name and basically sign off on and approve of whatever this person that you fucking picked is doing. Not
Yeah.
only that, like, sorry,
No, go ahead.
it's just the more you look into the actual like electoral and political process, the more you see that it's not even just that. It's not even just that like you have to align with a certain party that one of the two that's favored and dominates everything. And that's bad enough. But even when people try to do that, there's so many other roadblocks in the way. Like I don't know how closely you follow like these kinds of stories or whatever, but it seems like every other day there's a new report about people's names just magically being gone from like the voter registration forms or their party affiliation just is not at all what they registered as, or like
Mm.
all of a sudden half the polling places in a city that you can go vote at are shut down and like people
Yeah.
are just waiting for 10 hours in line and then just give up. It's like any number of things. There's
Yeah.
if just to fucking cast a vote, which is supposedly our American citizen right, it's almost like you have to run an obstacle course or something. Like there's like endless hurdles just to fucking say that you voted.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
crazy.
it goes along with the same thing you're saying, like with the polling and stuff. Like it's the voter ID laws that are, um, you know, or I guess are inherently racist. Voter ID laws. Like you said, like half those names just disappearing or places closed down. You're right. It's ridiculous. Like, and that's the other thing too. It's like, well, you can vote, but you have to register. You have to do all this other stuff too. It's the same thing with like your First Amendment right of peaceful protest. Like you can't protest anything because you have to go to the city and you have to apply for a permit, and you can't. You're out there doing something, but you're obstructing justice or whatever. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like you can't do these things. You have to go through so many hoops. And it like like you were talking about with voting and stuff. It's everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that uh, the racist aspect is absolutely a factor.
Mm.
Um, that's a huge topic. I mean, still to this day, and maybe even at this point bigger than in our lifetime before, racism is still this major issue. Um, but I argue that it's equally as much, if not slightly more, a classism issue.
Yeah.
A fucking anti, poor people issue. Not
Mm.
even poor, not basically the 1% or the 99%. I mean, at this point, like the disparity is so huge that that's really what it is now. It's you know you're either like just flat out wealthy or you're everyone else,
Yep.
you know? And that's who these things end up fucking over, the everyone else.
Mm.
Um, you know, so I mean, a lot of people are, oh, I'm sick of 99% this and that. Okay, so call it everybody else, you know? Like I mean, that's
Yeah.
either way, it breaks down to that type of fractional math, I guess. Um, and that's to me, that's a key point in the next topic I want to talk about, which is this fucking disgusting Stanford rape case. It's in the news. I think that's to me, it's the same issue.
Mm.
The fact that this kid admitted to, I don't know that it's the more details I read, it's kind of like unclear, I guess. But it's I don't know if it was sexual intercourse, but obviously it was unconsented sexual assault. Either way, he admitted to everything. You know, the girl was completely passed out or whatever, and he just like took advantage of a lifeless body essentially. And
Mm.
regardless of the laws and statutes in California that say he should have gotten a certain sentence or whatever the precedent was, the judge gave him, I think, 6 months, of which he's
Yep.
only going to serve 4 or 3 or 4.
I think it's 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that obviously it's a huge source of controversy and outrage and everything. Um, to me, that is a clear cut example of class instead of race. A lot of people, you know, are using like hashtag white privilege to fucking talk about it and stuff, but I don't think it's a predominantly white privilege issue. I think it's a rich person issue. His dad is a
Yeah.
wealthy and important guy. He's a Stanford school athlete, you know, and we all know how school athletes are protected, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of skin color.
Yep.
So
Well, yeah, I think, well, a lot of, depending on where you are too, the class issue and the race issue is kind of the same thing.
yeah, they're
You know,
absolutely linked for sure.
they're definitely linked, but I mean, and sometimes they're not. But yeah, in this case, um, I think it's probably a little both. It was a white person who
Right.
just happened to be rich also. But yeah, in this, it's probably mostly class just because of like the stature of his family and things like that. The dad probably like knows the judge or something and talked to, I don't know, whatever. I mean, he could have struck a plea deal because he pled guilty to it, and they gave him a reduced sentence because it's like the first time he did it. I mean, there's all sorts of things, but yeah, considering that, you have people, that got caught, growing marijuana, they go to jail for 10 years.
Exactly.
It's fucking bullshit compared to, oh, you physically, sexually assaulted somebody. Sorry, the wording of that was funny, but and you're gonna basically get a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
What in your mind is more abhorrent than the other one? Sorry, I was growing a plant, or I had forced sexual contact with someone.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty much a no-brainer, and that's the thing too. It's like a lot of it is, there's a lot of things wrong with it, and it's not just the white privilege, class privilege thing. It's like the way, the sentences for non-harmful not like cocaine, crack, but for like marijuana, it's considered a certain class of drug, so the sentencing for that is a minimum this, a minimum that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But and you rarely get a reduced sentence for stuff like that. But so there's issues with the law, and on top of just it being a class issue, it's ridiculous. Like the whole system's messed up. It's like, I mean, not getting too far off topic, but the prison incarceration system is like the new Jim Crow laws. Also, I mean, there's plenty of books written about that topic. It's been talked about time and time again. How we incarcerate, X amount percent more than any other country in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and a lot of it, with drugs and stuff, instead of putting someone in jail, like what's the worst thing you can do for a drug addict? Put them in jail, because when they get out, the first thing they're gonna do is go back to their drugs. You have to give them help to get over their issue and their dependence on it. You know what I mean? I'm just going off on a trail here, but so back to what you were saying. But it's all these things there's a problem.
Well,
So
that's a big part of the actual issue, I guess, with the the justice system or the lack of
Mm-hmm.
justice system is that it's not uh, certainly not focused on being rehabilitative. Um, I fail to see how it's really rehabilitative at all. It's a for-profit industry that has exploded in the last 30 years, and just like any other business that's making more money is the chief concern. And I think the profit and the drug angle are kind of why I say that to me it seems more about class, just because if it hadn't been, you know, a student athlete from Stanford who's got a rich dad, but instead was, a pothead from still a white guy from whatever community college is in the area, I mean, he would be in prison, no question. And especially when it comes out the judge was also a Stanford lacrosse player, and it's just a lot of the stories I've read are basically pointing out the fact that like judges are people too, and people make decisions based on what they can relate to, and clearly this guy saw himself. I don't know, but um, like you said, there's basically almost infinite layers of corruption and flaws in the system in this one case alone, and you're never really going to be able to get to the bottom of all of them, but just the fact that they kind of all came together, the kind of planets lined up, I guess, in this particular case, just shines a light on like how disturbing it can get.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's fucking crazy. It's crazy times.
Well, and the thing that makes me mad about it too is like all this stuff like comes to light and it's getting reported on. But is anything going to change? No.
No,
You
that's
know,
the thing.
there,
Yeah.
there's too much special interest. There's too much like corporate money behind politics and stuff. I mean, look at how many times, um, some kind of like gun legislation gets shot down because
Yep.
whatever X amount of Republicans are in the pocket of the NRA and they're getting paid off not to. They're special interest lobbyist groups. And it's like they have no place in America in my mind. It's, I thought long ago, we said there's no such thing as, monopolies. We have antitrust legislation. It's all this stuff. But you know what? There's only one cable company that I can pick from. It's
Yep.
like, I mean, like all this stuff, it's like, well, all this stuff seems to be like common sense, but, there's always some legal loophole and there's jargon you can't understand. And,
Yeah.
so, I mean, and I'm not a huge supporter. Back to the political issue. Well, actually, one point I forgot to bring up, which is funny because we were talking about how there's like a corrupted two-party system and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like this year you finally have, a candidate who's not like attached to any political party, can finance his own campaign, blah blah blah. And it's like he's actually gaining steam. I'm not saying I like Donald Trump or it's right, but it's the first time that we really have a serious candidate that's not technically a politician. And what happens? Like the Republican Party's like, oh, we're not going to support him. It's
Right.
it's kind of weird that like when finally someone like rises up and is above this, it's like, well, we're not going to support him. Oh, he just happens to be a jerk off. All this stuff. It's really kind of funny, in that sense that they're going to try to block him at like every chance they can, even like the Republicans. So you're right. There's so many obstacles just to doing it, even if you're a super rich jerk like Donald Trump.
Right.
Um, but back to like the whole money thing. Um, I was listening to like one of those town hall meetings with Obama, and some random guy got up and he started going off on like the good guy with a gun, rant that a lot of people get, and he said like every time we try to do something that's like that's like common sense, makes sense to protect people, blah blah blah. When it comes to gun legislation, it immediately gets shot down. Um, because of what we were talking about, before with like the NRA being in like the back pocket of the politicians and stuff like that, or the other way around.
Right.
And it's like everyone like screams like, oh, they're going to take away our guns, they're going to take away our guns, Second Amendment. It's like, and like we even just talked about, in order to peacefully protest or assemble, like you have to apply for a permit in a lot of places. Like you can't just go out there and do it. Like, and no one screams that like, oh, they're taking away our First Amendment rights. It's always the
Yeah.
goddamn guns,
Right.
And I mean, you look at it. We've talked about this at length before too. A gun isn't like a tool. I mean, it's the only thing a gun is meant for is to kill something with it.
Absolutely.
But in the thing with what Obama said that I agree with. I mean, I don't agree with everything the guy's done. I mean, I probably agree with about 40% of the things he's done. But even said, it's like, look at the automobile. Like, in the last 50 years, the number of automobile deaths have like dropped significantly, almost like an exponential rate, because they started instituting speed limits. Because there's seatbelt laws. Like, you have to wear your seatbelt or you get a ticket. You have to take a class and then a written test and then a road test to even get your driver's license.
Right.
You have to take a test before you can even get your permit to drive with a licensed driver. There are so many things in place. Like, there's mandatory airbags in vehicles now to help save your life. All these things for something that's not used to kill people. I mean, you can kill someone with a car if you wanted to, but for the most part, use a car as a tool to get from here to there.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing. It's like, just something like to expand the background checks, to do something to keep guns away from people that have no right owning them. People fucking lose their mind. And they're like, oh, they're taking away. It's automatically seen as like a thing. And even when you talk to like a sensible gun owner and say, well, you shouldn't have to worry about extended background checks. Like, you shouldn't have to worry about it. You're fine. It's not going to affect you. But then their argument to that is, well, this is just the start of violating our Second Amendment rights, so we need to stop it now. It's like, so you think they're going to pass this law? I mean, they might as well keep passing laws until the guns are illegal. I don't know, but it's ridiculous, And I mean, the state of mind that like a mass group of people have is perplexing. Like, I just don't understand.
Yeah, I guess that's where the term echo chamber comes into play.
Yep.
It's interesting to me, like, to go back to an earlier point you made about the fact that everybody is up in arms when they perceive that their guns are going to be taken away, but nobody says anything when the First Amendment rights are taken away.
Yep.
But what are the guns for? What is the Second Amendment for? So you can have a gun to protect your First Amendment rights. You know what I mean? And it's, in a way, like, to preserve and protect your citizenship and your right to exist as a free person, right? I mean, that's the whole defense, like, protection,
Yeah.
So they can't just come in and enslave you or whatever. And if you're not concerned, I mean, if you're not concerned about, and like you said, like the First Amendment or other things that happen all the time that are an erosion of rights, then what do you want the guns for? Then it starts to become pretty clear that you just like guns. You just fetishize guns.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you can claim otherwise at that point. And I think it's fair for anybody to be nervous about the government kind of like starting small on an issue and then snowballing over time. Look what happened with the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
Look what happened with civil liberties in this country in the last fucking 15 years. So there's a precedent, but I think the key point is what you've already said, the fact that guns are not they're not like any other object or item that you can own. They're different because they have one purpose, and it's to kill or injure. It's to harm. Like, they're not multi-purpose items. So they obviously have to be treated differently.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't even know how we got on guns, but
well, I was talking about money in politics and how common sense gun legislation gets blocked because NRA's special interests and things like that. But I don't know. I mean,
that's the other thing people don't realize is that the NRA isn't some like noble rights group. They're a fucking they're a lobbying group for the gun manufacturer industry. Yep. Like, it's as if anything, like, there's lobbying groups for like car manufacturers or fucking pencil manufacturers. Like, all it is a group that is put in place to make sure that the industry can still get like benefits and favorable treatment by the government so that they can still make their profits. And everybody, that's all it is. Anybody who is a quote unquote gun nut who's foaming at the mouth and the Ted Nugents of America, to point out a caricature of it. All they are basically just free advertisement and perpetuating profits for an industry that doesn't give a fuck about you and your rights. They just want to sell you guns. They want to make money.
Yeah.
That's all it
Yep.
is. I don't know. But,
Yeah.
you can't tell anybody that, I guess, who
No, of course not.
has gone too far down the rabbit hole on that topic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if you look at like the Second Amendment, when was the Second Amendment written? The late 1700s. Almost every gun in that time period. I mean, like the best, like I guess marksmen or soldiers or whatever could probably load and fire one of those guns like 3 times in a minute.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you look at it now, I mean, the obvious uh, fact to point out is that, like, in these mass shootings and stuff like that, if people didn't have like these high capacity magazines or easily reloaded weapons or whatever, they wouldn't have killed as many people. So I mean, you have to look at the Second Amendment and say, well, times have changed. We should probably reword this or do something. I mean, the Second Amendment says like a well-regulated militia, for whatever the security of a free state, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And it's like, what does this have to do with the militia? What is you going into Dick's and buying a shotgun to go hunting or for home defense have to do with being in a militia? It's
Exactly.
completely taken out of context. And especially in the time period. I mean, if you had the one shot musket or revolver from back in the days of yore, they get one shot off now before someone tackled the person. You know what I mean? It's like it's just dumb.
Right.
Like those kind of guns and stuff. They wanted people to have guns because if they needed the militia to fight a war, people already had a gun they could just take with them. That's why they didn't want to infringe that right, and that's the way I look at it. It has nothing to do with like, oh, it's one of my founding fathers' God-given rights. I can own a gun if I want. Ha ha ha. It's like they didn't write that amendment in the context that they wanted you to be able to buy a gun if you wanted to. It just doesn't. Whatever.
Well, I mean,
beat it to death.
yeah. Well, no. I mean, I think you're right. Like, you got nobody ever points out or takes into account the fact that all of this. I mean, I guess it's legislation, right? Like all of it was written and created at a time when everybody was still using candlelight and feathers dipped in ink to write things and communicate. And the technology, the gun and all manufacturing technology has changed exponentially since then. But the legislation shouldn't. You should still apply thoughts and things from that era to deal with a situation that has advanced in ways that they never could have imagined then. What other area of life are things handled that way?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I can't think of many other than unless you want to open the other Pandora's box of religion, because a lot of people treat the Bible the same way.
Yeah. Yep.
So I don't know. And how ironic is it that the Bible thumpers and gun nuts are often one and the same? Coincidence? Yeah. I think not.
No, because for some reason religion and guns go like hand in hand. I don't even know. It seems you're right. It's so weird. You think of like these Bible Belt born agains or evangelicals and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, guns, totally. Let's get guns. I love guns. Guns. It's like, what? Okay, but what was that thing in New York State? The SAFE Act or whatever? Didn't that limit the number of bullets you could put in a magazine? Like it limited those high capacity magazines or something? Is that what that was? Because they passed the SAFE Act in New York State. I'm not really sure because you see all those signs saying repeal the SAFE Act and blah blah blah. And I think
that's true. Yeah, I've seen those signs. I mean, I vaguely remember it being an issue, but I'm completely not familiar with it anymore. So, upon looking it up, the SAFE Act stands for Secure Ammunition and Firearms Enforcement Act.
Yeah.
And apparently that happened in 2013. Oh, it's a direct response to the Sandy Hook school shooting in Connecticut.
Right.
It bans the possession of any high-capacity magazine, regardless of when they were made or sold.
Mm-hmm.
The maximum capacity for all magazines, 10 rounds, except 22 caliber magazines are exempt. I guess, for hunting. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing too. I mean, that's like sensible, Like when Gabby Giffords was shot, from what I remember, the handgun the person used in that shooting, it was a high capacity magazine, and he wouldn't have been able to shoot or kill as many people as he did,
Yeah.
if he had less bullets in the gun, And people, like I said, people lose their mind. I mean, there's signs all over the place with people that say repeal the SAFE Act. Like, why do you need a high capacity magazine? Like, how many times are you gonna shoot a fucking deer when you're
Right.
going hunting? If you're a good hunter, you can shoot it once or twice and it's dead. Like,
Yeah, I think
give me a
the
break,
goal is
man.
always to be a one shot kill.
Hmm.
Um, I think stuff like that is kind of why what has always kept me from I don't want to say be converted, but from ever becoming a libertarian. Kind of what
Hmm.
my like chief um, source of disagreement with libertarianism, I guess, because it kind of for me like anybody who would want to repeal something like that or who fights against like gun regulation of any kind, it's kind of the same. It's like a libertarian mindset where it's like you know um, government like they don't. I guess they don't want any government involvement in any or like interference. And I'm for small government. I'm for privacy and all that stuff. But like um, we don't live in a world where everybody's equal and everybody's like equally intelligent or capable or rational. If that were the case, then yeah, like everybody should be able to be responsible for the fact that you could have a limited size magazine, a limitless rather. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like yeah, because it's like me. I'm a professional cook. Like if I want to use a 40-inch knife instead of an 8-inch knife, I should be able to because I'm. It's just a tool. It's just
Yeah.
I have a certain skill set to use it, and that should be good enough. But we're not living in that world, and sometimes you have to uh, enact regulations that create a framework or at least attempt to create some sort of I don't want to say safeguards, but some
Yeah.
guidelines, I guess, to make things a little more manageable and everything for the rest of us. you
Well,
know,
well, yeah. I mean, when it's a safety concern, you got to protect the people from themselves sometimes. So yeah, I mean, I get, I mean, really any kind of like political system, has its good points. I mean,
sure.
socialism isn't that bad, until you look at what people have done in the name of like socialism and communism and things like that. That it turns ugly. So people, as soon as you say, like, oh, he's socialist, that's terrible, but it's like, well, look at all the social programs that we have that aren't terrible. Like public school systems, like law enforcement. I mean, that's arguable. But
Right.
things like that. It's like you have infrastructure. You have people doing road work. Your taxes go to things like that. So to like make things better for everybody else. So like as soon as you say, well, let's just have like a one-payer socialist kind of healthcare system, you lose their fucking mind again.
Right.
It's like, what's the difference? I mean, it's like it's proven to work. But yeah, it's the same thing. So like you were saying with libertarianism, it's like, yeah, I like the idea of less government too, but like not completely. Like completely no government. There's a thing called no government. It's called anarchy. Like, do you want to live in a world like that? No, the government's there to help you, be safe and be secure and stuff like that.
Right.
To a point. Yes, obviously, governments abuse their power, people in government abuse their power. That happens.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that like that's okay. It's not okay, but and it happens. But like at the same time, I don't want to completely knock it down to a level where we can run around with whatever kind of gun we want. Drive cars that like burn like a gallon every mile you drive them and they're destroying our planet. Like I mean you need regulations and stuff like that.
Well, it's like
But
I don't know. I feel like it's the reason why in other areas of life no one single object or method is like the answer for everything. Like
right.
no one system is going to be the answer for everything. Obviously, just like anything else in life, like some combination of things from all the areas ends up with the best result. It's the reason why, we don't eat the same fucking food every meal of the day, every day of the week. Like,
Yeah.
our requirements to eat food to stay alive would be met by, a minimal, like, a certain vegetable, and a piece of meat or something, like the same
Mm.
shit every day. Like, we could survive off that, but you just can't, like, mentally, like, you would go crazy eating the same thing
Yeah.
every day. Like, it's why, like, you're wearing a navy hoodie right now. Like, why don't you wear a navy hoodie every single day? Like, it's the reason why we have more than one shirt. Like, your
Yeah.
requirements to be covered and protected are met by that shirt right now. But I mean, if
Yeah.
you had to wear that every day, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So I don't know why people don't understand that no one form of government is gonna, you know, be the answer to everything.
Nope. It sure isn't. And
Especially when
just to
it's.
be
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
good. Go ahead. Mine's off topic. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna finish my thing by saying, especially when it is uh, purported to be or advertised as, one thing, but functions
Mhm.
like anything but. Wink, wink, democracy.
Yeah. Wink, wink. No, I just wanted to point out when you said navy hoodie, you meant like the color, like navy blue, not actually
Oh, right, good call.
branch of service. Because I was in the Navy, but I do not wear paraphernalia saying such anymore.
Fair point, yeah.
Yeah. Just in case you were wondering, loyal listener who hasn't heard a podcast of ours in 6 months.
Well, did you have something in your mind to bring up next? If not, I do.
Are you hinting at me that like I should?
Oh no, I
Or...
just didn't want to like try to steamroll the course of everything.
Oh no, it's in your hands, man. Go
Well,
ahead.
I happen to be wearing a Ninja Turtle shirt, and the second Michael Bay Ninja Turtle movie came out recently.
Fuck. Yeah, I know. We should have. I should have. I wanted to bring that up actually when we were talking about the reboots before, because I did notice you were wearing the '80s cartoon version Teenage Mutant Ninja
Right.
Turtles T-shirt. Um. Yeah. Go ahead. Have
Well,
at it.
see, I felt like the Ghostbusters thing is more of a social issue at this point than an entertainment,
Yeah.
but now we're back on entertainment, so yeah.
Well, I mean, the Ghostbusters thing has turned into a social monster, is what
Right.
it is. You're right. It's transcending all forms of everything right now. It's social, political, entertainment. Why? I mean, it's crazy. And it's just like I'm not gonna pay to see it. I might rent it at Redbox to see how horrible it is, but I'm not gonna give them $12
Oh,
and
that's
shove it. But
that's why it's such an effective and stimulating issue, because it pulls from all areas to combine it.
yeah, it
um,
pulls from all areas of annoyance.
it isn't just relying on sexism or entertainment or any one area. It combines all of them.
Yep.
But I feel the same about these new Ninja Turtles movies as I do about that. Like, well, obviously not relating to anything about like sexism or anything like that, but just unnecessary to make, poorly executed, not appealing to me in any way. Sure, there's an audience for it, and that's fine.
Mm.
It's just not me. I actually I've like you said, you don't vote. I don't vote either. Um, I've taken the same approach to 90% of the movies that come out anymore. Um, especially if they're a reboot. They don't
Mm.
exist to me. I don't need them to function. I'm aware of them. I may or may not have an opinion about them, but that's where it ends. I'm absolutely not going to support them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've seen, as many trailers as are available for this Ninja Turtles movie, and sure, it's kind of cool that they're bringing characters and elements from the cartoon that of the shirt that I'm wearing right
Mm.
now. Um, that's, I guess, like mildly appealing on some level that they use those characters, but again, it's the execution and it's the it almost seems like a gimmick. Kind of like
Mm.
the female cast for me of Ghostbusters is at its heart just a gimmick to push an agenda. Um,
Right.
Pulling characters from you know our age groups like version of the Ninja Turtles to sort of entice us to come in and bring our kids now. It just reeks of like a cheap ploy.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm surprised because I did see the first one. I'm talking about the reboot, the Michael Bay,
Yeah, me too.
what you're talking about. I did see that mainly because our kids wanted to see it, which is basically what your audience is right now, are kids. And I thought it was terrible. And I'm surprised that they made a second one of seeing how terrible the first one was. I must have been the only person that thought it was terrible, or one of a very small majority that thought it was terrible.
Right.
But I mean, just the way they look, I don't like. I mean, like the actual like the shape of their heads and their bodies and like what they do. It doesn't seem like the Ninja Turtles to me. It seems like something that's calling themselves Ninja Turtles, but they're not. You know,
Right.
I'm just shocked that they made this. I mean, you're right. They're doing a little bit of fan service by putting like Bebop, Rocksteady, Krang is going to be in it. You know, that is a little bit of fan service, and I think that was their ploy to keep as many people on board with it as possible.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like you said before, to me, the only Ninja Turtles exist are like the comics, the cartoon, and like the original 1990 Ninja Turtles movie with the people that were actually in suits and they had animatronics for their faces, and you know it was real. You know, it wasn't like CGI. And this is what this movie is. It's just another one of those fucking CGI bore fests. You know,
Yeah.
very little acting, mostly computers. You know, like the Star Wars prequel trilogy. It's CGI. That's all it is. You know. Oh, but it's got fucking Megan Fox in it.
Right.
So, you know.
Who's just fucking flawlessly cast as
Yeah, she doesn't even look like April. You know, like give me a break.
as she has been in her entire career. Uh, yeah.
What does make sense to me about that is, didn't she hate Michael Bay for some reason, and then
Yeah,
all of a sudden she's working with him again?
yeah,
Like,
they had. Well, it's like the second he decided to throw her a starring role, it's like, oh, you know what? I probably overreacted before. Like, yeah, I want to be a movie star. Let's pay it. You know, it's so stupid. It's
well, you know, it seems to me it's almost like that that thing going on with the pop star Kesha and her manager. That's
yeah.
like all over the place, and like you know the courts won't let her get out of her contract, even though the guy is like horrible. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like that's the same way with like Michael Bay. Like he's like that guy. I don't even know what his name is, like Dr. John or something. What the hell's his
Dr.
name?
Luke or something. I think it's Luke.
Yeah, whatever. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of feel it's almost like that situation where it's like Megan Fox was like under contract to do like Michael Bay movies or something, and even though she hates him, they're like forcing her to do it or something. I don't know. It's just like
Right.
just fucking more Hollywood nonsense.
Well, it's like you said before. You felt like you were either alone or in an extreme minority
Hmm.
among people who like are disgusted or uninterested in this Ninja Turtles stuff right now. And I felt the same way. So when I learned that the second one is actually pretty severely underperforming at the box office, I felt pretty vindicated. I got a
Good.
I got a twisted sense of delight from that, I guess. Um,
Ah.
it says that the the budget was $135 million, and I mean it's too early to tell. It's only been out for like 2 weeks or something, but they're already upset that it only took in 35 million. Um,
Total.
yeah, so it's 30 million. Well, I guess that's just the debut figure.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if that's debut like week or opening weekend probably, but they're already comparing it to the first one, which had an opening debut of 65 million.
Ah.
So roughly half.
Ah. Serves them right. Fuck you, Hollywood.
Yeah. Oh, and it said it goes on to say that. Um, okay, so it says while lower in turnout, those who did show up liked this film far better than the first, according to exit polls, which of course polling and focus groups are the lifeblood of Hollywood, and that's how they make movies because that's what's important. So it says
Mm-hmm.
Out of the Shadows, which is the sequel name, doubles down on the fan elements with the introduction of a number of villains from the 80s cartoon, but it was a bit too late, sorry, for some who turned out for the first. The studio noticed a drop in attendance from the quote-unquote nostalgia audience of 25 to 34-year-olds this time around.
Yeah, I'm in that audience. Well, actually,
We
I'm
are that
35
drop.
now. Well, it sucks because now since my birthday was yesterday, I'm out of that like 20 whatever to 34 age group. Now I'm
Right.
in the 35 to 44 age group, which sucks.
And I just hit the very
Um,
last fucking end of it
and enjoy it while
today.
it lasts.
My voice will still be
But
heard. Well, no, see, you were still 34 when it was released, so
no,
you're
fuck, you're
golden.
right. There you go. But that's the thing. Like, I think those people they pulled just haven't seen the first one in a long time, so they just forgot. Saying, "Oh yeah, it was better than the first one." I don't even remember
Oh
the
no,
first one.
well, in this case, the first one refers to the first Michael Bay one.
Right. No, that's what I meant.
Oh, okay.
Like
I thought you meant like
they
the.
probably haven't seen that in so long, they
Okay.
probably forgot
Yeah.
how horrible that was too. And like, wait, is this worse than the first one or not? I'm gonna say it's not as bad as the first one because it had Krang in it.
Yeah. Well, that one fucking made worldwide like $500 million. Ugh. Which is of course why there's a sequel.
Well, okay, well that's the thing. Like I think, well, yeah, I guess like since it made so much money, see, they don't care about the quality of the movie, just how much money it made.
That's all
But
it
I
is.
think,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, well, I think when that's worldwide too. So I
Yeah.
mean, who knows what the domestic take was, but still, I think just because people were probably curious to see what this movie was like,
Right.
it's probably why they went and saw it. I mean, we didn't see it until it came out on video because we rented it from a Redbox, but yeah, I just it just sickens me. I hate it.
I predict a very similar um, performance for the new Ghostbusters as well when that comes out in July.
I
The
bet that's a tank.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
you're gonna have like, the surge in the beginning, the opening weekend of all the people who are trying to prove everybody wrong, and like all the people who bitch about it, but will still go and give money to it because either A, they somehow hold out hope that whatever fraction of it they haven't seen yet will just be amazing, like, oh, it's somehow good, like I gotta give it a chance, or B, in that you can't have an opinion if you don't vote crowd. Like I'm gonna go see it just so I can say my piece. The idea that 5 trailers and email leaks and plot leaks aren't enough to form an opinion is absurd to me. But yeah, I think it's gonna have this surge in the beginning and then just drop right the fuck off, which rightfully so.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I guess I wanted to ask, like, do yeah, how are your kids? Where do they stand on Ninja Turtles and their interests? Like, do they are they asking to go see it or anything like that, or are they involved at all?
No. I think they might be getting a little bit too old for Ninja Turtles. I think
Fuck
is
you,
what
we're
it.
not too old for Ninja Turtles.
No, but I mean, like how you go through like a phase.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the movies. Well, yeah, it's weird because like they still want to see like animated movies, but they haven't really said anything about Ninja Turtles, which is weird. They've never really like been into it like they have other things,
Right.
like Star Wars or like Marvel. I know they wanted to see X-Men Apocalypse, which I wanted to see also, just because for the sake of the nostalgia of Marvel, and the newer X-Men movies aren't that bad, and like they weren't, um, besides Spider-Man, I think when that X-Men movie first came out, like in the was it late '90s, early 2000s, that was actually a pretty decent flick. I mean, it wasn't great,
Which one?
but the original X-Men
Oh,
that had, it was like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine and Halle Berry was Storm and all that stuff.
right.
I thought it was a pretty decent movie, and that I think those two movies, like the Spider-Man and the X-Men, kind of ushered in the new era of like the Marvel movie, all those years ago. What am I saying? Okay, so X-Men Apocalypse, I kind of want to see it too because I think that when they've recast it so that they're younger because obviously Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart are kind of getting on an age. If they want
Right.
the franchise to go, they're gonna have to do without them. So now like uh, Michael Fassbender has been cast as Magneto and so on and so forth. So yeah, they're more interested in things like that. But yeah, Ninja Turtles isn't really on the radar right now. So I guess I won't have to worry about them asking to go see it and quietly putting them down.
Well,
Like, no.
I'll take that as an indication of how crappy this incarnation of the Ninja Turtles is.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even really.
It may or may not be true, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't even remember them having like an overly positive reaction the first time we saw it. When we, like I said, we rented it.
yeah.
I don't remember them being like, "Oh, that was awesome." They were kind of like, "Yeah, it was good," and then they went to bed.
Yeah.
So they weren't really like, I mean, they just didn't seem like they were into it. And I was like, ugh, that sucked. Like I didn't like that. But
Yeah. I'd be
TMNT.
I'd be curious to see like not just your kids specifically, but kids of their age group and generation. Um, just to see their reaction to these movies versus like the cartoon that we watched and the movies that we grew up with and that kind of stuff. Like I wonder what if they would react differently. I'm very curious about that. Like 'cause I personally believe that our generation's versions of the Ninja Turtles and the entertainment associated with them is superior. And clearly I'm biased, but at the same time I don't think so because
No.
it's clear that there's a higher quality and higher level of attention or care put into it, I guess. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's the way everything was.
Plus,
Even I mean,
well,
like look at not just movies, like TV shows, music,
right,
food.
absolutely across the board. I mean, in fairness, there was a lot more riding on it the first time around because they were establishing a new idea and new property, and like now that's been established for 30 years. So now studios they don't have to worry about like, gee, is this Ninja Turtle thing going to be a success or not? Because it's fucking billions of dollars of success at this point. So. Not, I mean, maybe that's why they can just kind of be more lazy and put out shit movies with the name on it.
Yeah, and it's almost like they assume that these Ninja Turtles are better quality because they're like CGI and the graphics are like polished and it's not cheesy, or something like that. And it's like that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
Part of the reason the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were so popular is because they were a little bit cheesy and ridiculous. I mean, the fucking concept is
Yeah,
ridiculous
it's
when you think
absurd.
about it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that eat pizza and know kung fu or whatever the fuck.
Exactly.
It's like the whole concept's absurd, but it worked because it was goofy and silly. Like it doesn't have to be serious. It doesn't have to be polished and redone. It's just like it was fine.
Right.
I mean, even think of like, remember that like arcade game? Like it was it was the Ninja Turtles arcade game where you could like get 4 friends and you could all pick a different Ninja Turtle and you could go through and and you'd attack the Foot Clan and
Oh yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. It's fucking
That
awesome.
thing that was amazing. That
Yep.
arcade game was like one of the best arcade games ever made.
Yeah, it's still
It,
if you find it to this day, it's still like amazingly fun.
Yeah, and they tried to push it, on like the Nintendos and the Segas and stuff like that, but it wasn't quite as magical as the the large computerized consoles, the arcade. But yeah, I mean
Well,
stuff like that, ties into my nostalgic factor with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like it was a
right.
Saturday morning cartoon, it was the live action movie, it was all the toys, it was the video games. Like it was fun, and
Yeah.
now it doesn't seem like it would be fun.
No. Um,
But
I think I mean I things that are even if they're ridiculous conceptually,
mm,
um, things that are still grounded in some form of reality appeal to me more than anything else. And that's
mm,
why that I've noticed that that's a common thread for me in things that I gravitate towards when it comes to like these types of movies or whatever. Um, that's why I continue to vehemently defend the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, especially the first one,
yeah,
because like the whole tagline was "You will believe a man can fly," and they showed you. I mean, they accomplished that effect by having him on wires on a crane, so it was a man literally flying through the air, and it looked real because it was real.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it looked amazing. I mean, obviously some of like the optical printer shit when he's flying over the cityscapes and stuff like that hasn't aged very well, of course. But when like the close-up shots when he's like actually fucking hovering in the air and stuff, it looks unbelievable to this day.
Yep.
Um, and of course, Superman is another thing. It's a ridiculous concept. It's an
Yeah.
alien from outer space who fucking is fueled by our sun to do ridiculous feats of strength and power.
Well,
Um,
really, any superhero comic book is
yeah,
ridiculous.
absolutely.
Like to a point.
But if you ground it in reality, that's what causes your suspension of disbelief. That's where you can go and get lost in a movie for 2 hours and really, be like, wow, that was fucking amazing. And that's why the first Ninja Turtles movie worked so well because they grounded it in like gritty reality and they were physical objects, creatures that, even the people working on the movie, if you watch like the behind the scenes stuff, started to forget that they weren't real.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
You can't do
Yeah.
that by looking at a guy in a fucking bike helmet with dots all over it, a motion capture suit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's a
Yeah.
nitpick to some people, but I feel like that's the key.
I'm surprised, even with the new Star Wars, The Force Awakens, that they used motion capture too. I thought, um,
Well, for like
because it,
Maz Kanata and stuff, you mean? Or
yeah, Maz Kanata and for Supreme Leader Snoke. I mean,
yeah,
I kind of feel like, well, I think you could have. I mean, I guess like the Maz Kanata character is understandable, so it doesn't look like an awkward puppet or something, because that character is a smaller in stature, like Yoda kind of thing. But
right.
I don't know. I mean, I was just surprised they did that, but I mean, overall, I think it worked. But I don't know. That's just a random thought I had.
Well,
About
I
it. But
agree.
you're right.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think, um, see, I think Star Wars is more acceptable because it used both, especially in
Yeah.
the Maz Kanata scene. There's still plenty of those like practical, like guys in masks and stuff, like real creature effects and stuff, like the old style, mixed in with her as a CGI character. And plus,
Yeah.
like, like with these Turtles movies, they took the idea of mutant turtles, like obviously even in the original movie, like played fast and loose with their physical size. If you look at like the comics and like the even on the back of the action figures, they're supposed to be like 4'8", like they're turtles that like have human qualities, but they're still little animals. They have now fucking they're like as if turtles were mutated with 4 Shaquille O'Neals at this point in the new movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah, they're like Incredible Hulks with shells on. So that's another part of the reason, like, obviously I realize how silly it is to say, like, these turtles aren't realistic. But, you're taking a concept that's already unrealistic and just making it worse, expanding on the lack of realism.
Yeah. No, I feel you. Well, I think, like we said before, like most superhero things are ridiculous. Like when you think about, people having superpowers or whatever, it's just some like fantasy that everybody has. They want to be able to fly, they want to, whatever. And like, yeah, this stuff, like you said, has to be suspended or like grounded in reality. And I think that's why, they've done a really good job of doing that over the years with, who they've made up as characters. I mean, like look at Batman. He doesn't even have superpowers. He's like a normal person. He's just like a really smart and like a physical specimen. But he exists in a universe where there are people with superpowers, like Superman and stuff. But Batman, is a tortured individual, and his like, I don't want to say depression, but like his issues are real to people about like dealing with loss and stuff like that, and that's what fuels his desire to be who he is, which makes him a believable character.
Right.
Same thing with like Peter Parker. I mean, I don't know how many kids reading Spider-Man could relate to Peter Parker because they might be nerdy,
yep,
or looked down upon for being nerdy or an outcast or something like that. And his character, wasn't like he was like the popular jock in school that happened to be a superhero. He was an everyday kid, that became a superhero. And you're right. Those things like that makes you suspend your belief because you can relate to the character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is really what it comes down to. And yeah, and as absurd it is to say, I can relate to the old Ninja Turtles more than I can with the new.
Right.
And it's just, yeah.
Well,
there's nothing more to say about it to me. So.
Well, it's like you said with Batman. Those are perfect.
Yeah.
Look at the split between the Tim Burton Batman versus the Joel Schumacher Batman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's the key difference? Obviously, none of it's realistic, but I think it can be argued that the Tim Burton Batmans are a little more grounded in reality than the Joel Schumachers, where all of a sudden fucking everything's brightly colored and Batman's driving up the side of statues in the Batmobile. Like, it doesn't make any sense, among many other crazy flaws with it. It's the same deal with the Christopher Nolan Batmans. Well, I mean, what's the key factor in their success?
Yeah.
Obviously, again, there are varying levels of reality present in all those movies, but I think that it's safe to say that of any superhero films, especially like a series of them, there's possibly none more you know, painstakingly realistic than the Christopher Nolan Batman movies.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean,
I
those
mean, I
movies.
totally agree with that. I mean, that's probably arguably one of the best film trilogies ever made.
That's
Were the Batman, yeah, the Christopher Nolan ones, but
yeah. Look at. I mean,
um,
I
yeah,
don't know. Like I was saying earlier about like the level of attention and care put into something. I mean, those movies reek of that too. So I don't know.
yeah. Well, and a lot of it goes back to storytelling too. You know,
Right.
like you look at the Christopher Nolans. I mean, it's not just like, oh, it's Batman. He's fighting a villain and he's going to win. There's layers upon layers of like subtext and his interpersonal relationships with people. You know, even like Alfred. I mean, Alfred is like the only person that keeps Bruce Wayne, you know, I guess grounded in his own reality as Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? Like their relationship in that movie is so important, and he builds it to be so important that it like, you know, it's very. You can see like Alfred's pain when something happens to Bruce. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just like you just said, it's attention to detail. It's like not just making a spectacle, putting someone in a costume, and making all these like neon colors and ridiculous characters that hopefully no one notices. This is just like a thin story with nothing, no substance to it. You know what I mean? And that's, I mean, they even did that in the Tim Burton ones too. You know, he's constantly haunted in that movie about his parents being murdered. You know, and like that reminds you that he's driven to do what he does. You know, and it's just better. You
Yeah.
know, casts were better in both those. I mean, when you get into the Joel Schumacher, I mean, for Christ's sake, you have Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne. Like, go fuck yourself. You have fucking George Clooney. Like I like a lot of stuff George Clooney's done, but not Bruce Wayne. You
Right.
know, like he's not. I mean, he fits like the Playboy image of Bruce Wayne, but not like the Batman
Right.
image. You know what I mean? It's just like it's not. And like Val Kilmer was the opposite. He fit more of like the Batman persona, but as Bruce Wayne, he sucked. Like I did not believe Val Kilmer was fucking Bruce Wayne. Like,
Absolutely.
oh, I mean, he's obviously not fucking Bruce Wayne, but you know what I mean. He wasn't Bruce Wayne. Um, but yeah, it's just ugh,
I don't
like
know. I mean,
those movies make me sick.
as you're describing it, for some reason this crazy analogy popped into my head, but it kind of holds true. I was just thinking about, I've owned a ton of cats over the years as pets, and it's they all have the same thing in common. Where you go down these fucking aisles, like the pet aisles in stores or whatever, and all these crazy, ridiculous toys and accessories exist. And I've noticed that over the years, every cat I've ever had, they love to play with things that look like an actual mouse. And the second you start adding things on, like now it's pink and it's got tassels on it and it's got feathers hanging from it and it's got a bell on a fucking spring hanging from it, and like the more crazy things you add on, the less they want anything to do with it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And that's all that like stuff like those Joel Schumacher Batman movies were, is just adding extra bullshit. Sparkly, colorful, funny, well, let's get bigger celebrities, it's just more cameos, more characters. No. It's the same
Yeah.
exact thing. So I just thought that was kind of funny.
Well, yeah, and of course there was the big controversy of them putting nipples on the
Yeah.
Batman suits too. Like, why do you have to add nipples? Like, who gives a shit? You know?
Yeah.
Or I mean, in the sense of it, no one should have even made a deal about there being nipples on the costume, but it doesn't really make sense to have them.
No, yeah. It seems
But I
very
mean, that was
bizarre.
like one of those non-issue things that people blew out of proportion again.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of stuff was added to it. I mean, even if you look at like Batman into Batman Returns, like I mean, you could tell that some of the set pieces were different. Um, because I think one of the glaring differences between Batman and Batman Returns was like I felt like they were in a different city or something. Like
Yeah.
Gotham didn't look the same,
Absolutely.
but it wasn't because they made it flashier. They just like changed it for some reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it had the same feel to it, and that's the problem when it came to the Joel Schumachers. Like it got more and more ridiculous, you know.
Yep.
And of course, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's almost like contractually he has to have like 15 one-liners per movie to make like some kind of catchphrase
Yeah.
for Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know.
There's like
So
a
like I
clause
mean,
in his contract or something.
exactly. And when he played Mr. Freeze, I mean, it was just like bad pun after bad pun after bad one-liner. I'm just like, just fucking stop, you know?
Yep.
Man, that was terrible. Anyway, uh, man, yeah, quality was just, ugh. I mean,
Yeah.
Batman and Robin was worse than Batman Forever. I mean, I liked Jim Carrey as the Riddler. I thought that was a pretty good role for him. But Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face was kind of a stretch.
Yeah.
He's not that kind of person. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you could. It seemed like he was probably enjoying the chance to do a role like that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it just came off very awkward and forced and ugh. Um, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's why I think like keeping the more fantastic and ridiculous a character is, the more important it is to keep them grounded in reality in a realistic setting. Because like that's why I always, as a kid, anytime things I liked, like to come back to the Turtles, for example, at a certain point in the cartoon, they were like going into space and going into other dimensions and all these aliens and stuff. It's like that's when I lost interest.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's it. It's not like kids like aliens and kids like space and kids like this and that. So let's put them all in this. Like, no, no.
No, it's one thing.
Like you start to, that's why you don't put fucking every spice in the cupboard when you're making food, in a stew or whatever. Like, no, because then it just tastes like a jumbled mass of over the top craziness.
Well, that's the thing. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles already had a science fiction element to it,
For sure.
being that they turned into talking Teenage Mutant Ninja. You know what I mean? That's already a sci-fi element. Like you don't have to throw in time travel. Like, oh, you know what? Back to the Future's popular. Well, let's make the Turtles go back in time. Maybe that'll catch on. And then, oh, Star Wars is popular again. Let's make them go into space. It's like, no, like things already have the element, or very, I mean, it's that's why I think Star Wars works so well too, because it has the sci-fi element, but it also has like little elements of like mythology, almost like samurai code,
Right.
stuff like that. And it's little bits here and there. It's not like they did everything all at once. Like that's another reason why I think the prequels didn't work, besides the obvious glaring shortcomings of it. But
Right.
it got a little bit too political.
Yeah.
And like it's like, well, there was already a little bit of a political element in it, but they went over the top.
Yeah.
Like it got too complicated and too confusing almost. But it's just like, I think that was another reason with it. But it's like you were saying about the Two-Face character. That's why the Christopher Nolan Two-Face worked better than the Batman Forever Two-Face, because it was more realistic. Like he didn't
Absolutely
go crazy for 20 years. He went crazy for like 2 hours in the movie, then he died. So like he killed off Two-Face so fast, but it was realistic because he became disfigured and he went insane, and then he ended up dying. It wasn't like he went into hiding and then planned to rob a bank, and that's one of the biggest shortcomings of taking comic book properties and then putting them into a movie, because you can't have the villains continually getting away and coming back and all that stuff. That makes it unrealistic for movies. In comics, yeah, you want to see Batman fight the Joker every other issue, or whatever, like maybe once or twice a year. That's cool because you have to keep it going to keep the comic books selling. But a movie is one and done almost. Even like in a trilogy, it's still like a one arc and done. So that's why, like, Ra's al Ghul dies, Two-Face died, Joker wasn't supposed to die, but Heath Ledger died, so they just decided not to bring the character back. So that was like the only character that really was gonna, reoccur. And Scarecrow reoccurred. He came back in the second movie, but they put him in jail.
Right.
So I mean, it was somewhat realistic. Again, not every one of the villains is gonna die, but yeah, it was just handled better.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that's the thing. They took you, with the Two-Face example specifically, they took you on his path and developed his character. I know that's what character development. What is that? Like they brought you along with him to show you what led to him becoming this, ultimate character that, like, we all, well, I mean, not we all, but fans of Batman know pretty well. But I guess it was like a mini origin story within the confines of the movie, but I mean, it just, they made it make sense. It wasn't, again, they grounded it in reality. It's a guy who fucking had a traumatic event and, has a, I don't know, like a duality about him underneath the surface, so that when the traumatic event happens, it just sort of blows it up and causes it to come out in exaggerated ways. Not like, a guy with fucking 8 pounds of fucking prosthetic goop on the side of his face. It's like neon pink for some reason. It's like,
yeah, right. He's wearing like a zebra print costume or something. Well, Well, and his what they wrote into the movie, it made sense too. Like they didn't want, because Harvey Dent was like a crusader against like this organized crime that was running rampant in the city,
Right.
and he was like the person that couldn't be bought off, that he was going to prosecute, blah blah. And then when he turned into a bad person, they're like, fuck. What's going to happen to this city if they find out that Harvey Dent turned into a homicidal maniac? So they lied and said, he sacrificed himself, and they made him a martyr. And that's
Exactly.
like, that makes perfect sense, because the public reaction would have been like, well, shit, if Harvey Dent turned bad, there's no hope for us whatsoever.
Right.
And they burned the town down, you know what I mean? But, and, they didn't know who Batman was, so they made him the scapegoat.
Exactly.
That made perfect sense. That was a great idea,
Yep.
But, yeah, like you said before, character development, what's that?
I don't know. Time and time again, like, you're always going to get, the movie equivalent of the shiny crazy cat toy. You're always going to have an audience for that. You're always going to have, especially if it's like a type of new and shiny that we haven't seen before, like, I don't want to. I'm not saying that this is wholly a bad movie, but for example, like Jurassic Park, like the effects were pretty groundbreaking at the time, and that was a big part of its giant success. I think that also it was a movie with a lot of care made as well. But when things like that happen, like the Star Wars prequels were, I think Episode 2 was the first movie ever, major release, to ever be shot 100% digitally without film. And then like things like Avatar, that was hugely successful because it was like a kind of a newer, more refined version of 3D technology. It's just like all the tech things lined up. Like you're always going to have that kind of stuff where, I guess it sort of seems to build a case for, big effects movies. But those are kind of standouts because they're special within that subject. But it's just like any other area where you have, anytime one thing like is successful, everybody tries to copy it. So then you just litter the landscape with like, oh, okay, so let's just load everything with effects then, because these movies made a lot of money. So you're always going to have an audience for that, because there are people that are fucking easily impressed, or like just like to see like things explode and things move, and they're just like short attention span, easily stimulated things. But I think that if you go back and look like all these examples that we've given, just look at the history of movies over time, it's always the stuff that grounds in reality, that has a strong story, that develops its characters well, that attention to detail, all these things. Those are the movies that not only are successful, but that stand the test of time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think.
Well, definitely. I mean, it's the reason why a movie like Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock still holds up and is still somewhat creepy and scary today. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, he was kind of an innovator for his time anyway, but that's just an example that I can think of that you're talking about. I mean, that movie was made in the 60s, is black and white, and it still holds up.
Absolutely.
But whatever, man. Rant over. No, not really. But how did we get on? Oh, we're talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie.
Yeah,
that's the backdrop for the whole thing. I know.
It's a very inspiring, passionate topic.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, do you have anything on your mind that you specifically wanted to address?
No.
Nothing.
Well, our birthdays are this week, so we're getting older. That always sucks, but
that does continue to happen.
Yeah, it keeps happening. The March of Time, they call it, or something. I don't know, whatever.
Right.
Well, I'm trying to think back of like what we talked about on our Lost recording that we could talk about again. But I know that we talked about Ghostbusters then, and we talked about the gun issue. Well, I know that a lot of our shows are very Star Wars centric too. But they released that Rogue One trailer, which I thought was better than it was bad.
Well, it's definitely.
I guess everybody.
I was gonna say it's definitely cool to see, the I guess the original movie era. Done, in a modern way or whatever, with modern technology. I don't know. Like it's cool to go from seeing, the new versions of everything, like the new Stormtroopers and the new TIE fighters and this and that, to all of a sudden seeing the classic ones again. So,
Yeah,
That's
that was pretty neat. They're even building the Death Star in that. Well, I know a bunch of people lost their mind because I guess they scheduled like 6 weeks of reshoots for the summer, which is
right.
typical for movies. But everyone's like, "Oh no, what was wrong with it?" And they're just freaked out. They've only had the one trailer though, so I haven't really been able to get too refined of an opinion. But I guess I could say that what I've seen of it, I liked more than I didn't like.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing I didn't like is I didn't like that weird like samurai dude. That was kind of odd.
Yeah.
Like what's he doing in there? And then um yeah, that's basically it. I'm trying to think. I'm going through the trailer in my head, but I can't think of anything else I didn't like. And of course, they have another CGI character. I think it's like a robot that like helps them out or something like that. That's kind of funny. But yeah, that's really it. Like you said, it's like the original era, so it's like all the stuff that we know and love.
Yeah.
They released like something online about like they're gonna have like a new fighter style, like not like a fighter, not fighting, but like they have like the Y wing and the X wing fighter. There's gonna be like a V wing or something like that. I'm just like, God, yeah. Like I just hate like how it's almost like when you do a Star Wars movie, you have to throw in something that you've never seen before.
Right.
It's like I don't want to see another fighter
Yeah.
from that era, because like where does this show up in any other movie? It doesn't. It's like we've seen the A wing, the X wing, the Y wing, the B wing. Just stick to that.
Yep.
Like don't make another fighter jet thing. It's like
it's like
the rest.
It would be whatever. It'd be like I guess passable if they wanted to do that in like episode 8. 7, 8, 9. Like obviously we haven't seen what happens yet, so like there could be any new thing made up. But yeah, you're talking about a very fixed timeline, like just before the events of the original, episode 4, A New Hope. That's not enough time to say like, oh, these viewings just went out of fashion between now and then. That's stupid. Yeah, like just make a good story with the existing universe that you have that you're setting it in.
Yeah. Oh, here's the dumb rumor. I just remembered. Here's the stupid rumor that I don't like is they're gonna have apparently the guy that they cast for the Han Solo prequel is gonna make an appearance in this movie, which makes absolutely no sense.
Actually,
because this is like takes place right before A New Hope. Not like right before, not like a minute before, but as far as I know, they steal the plans and then they give them to Princess Leia and she goes on the run and they track her down and that's where New Hope happens.
Right.
So why would they get this guy to be in this movie? It makes no sense to put Han Solo in there, except for the fact that they want you to get excited for the Han Solo prequel, which I'm not excited for.
Exactly. It's a built-in advertisement for sure. That's now that you mention that, I do remember hearing that as one of the big reasons for the reshoots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope it's just because they need to like add a couple things or whatever. It's probably like normal, movie making mumbo jumbo, but yeah, I was just a little irked about hearing that. It's like, no, leave them out of it. Leave your stupid new fighter craft out of it and leave Han Solo out of it. I guess like the rumor is Darth Vader's going to be in it, which is fine because you can still dress someone up like Darth Vader, and it makes sense. As far as I know, Ian McDiarmid's still alive, so if you wanted the Emperor to be in it, you could do that too. Right. I guess I heard a rumor too that that Grand Moff Tarkin was gonna be in it, and they were gonna use like existing footage or like CGI to make him like a hologram, so it looked a little more realistic, like he's talking to someone.
Yeah.
Because they've already said that the general type character with the white suit, I can't remember the actor's name, is not Grand Moff Tarkin. He's some other high up general or something like that. So a lot of stuff that we haven't heard about is going to be in it, but then a lot of stuff that we have heard about is going to be in it. So that's cool. And and actually, you're talking about the new stormtroopers. They're putting in a new style of stormtrooper in this movie too that we've never seen before. The black stormtroopers. So I'm just kind of like, see, they're doing that too. It's almost like you have to put a different looking stormtrooper in every Star Wars movie you do.
That's like an expanded universe thing.
Yeah.
What was it called? The Shadow Trooper or something?
Yeah, that was it was very prevalent in like the like video games and in books and stuff like that. The Shadow Troopers. I think they were in the comics too. I can't remember. God, there's so much Star Wars nonsense I've read. I can't remember
Right.
what's real and what's not. Sometimes I mean, what's canon and what's not. What's
Well,
real
see,
and what's
but
not.
that's it. Seems like that's why that Disney like officially decided to make all the like expanded universe and video game stuff non-canon, so they could like
Hmm.
mine it for ideas later on and just plug it into their movies whenever they wanted. It's starting to come off that way.
Well, I honestly don't have a problem with that because most of the expanded universe stuff sucked anyway. So I think taking the best elements out of it is the best way to go anyway. I mean,
Yeah,
just
but
because there was so much of it and
I
it was
agree.
like,
But couldn't you cherry pick it without like saying it doesn't exist?
right,
Couldn't you
yeah,
just be like,
you
oh
could,
yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Like this
yeah,
this story happened, and like, oh well, Shadow Troopers actually first appeared in here. Like I don't know. Just seems like you could have
yeah.
both. Um. Yeah. Oh, the other thing about Rogue One, I think that I guess is probably is or going to be a topic of discussion on some level is the fact that it's another like female-led female heroine story, right?
Yeah, they're making it out that Jin Urso, who is part of this team, is like the main character. I guess
Yeah.
that's who they're making it out to be. As far as I know, I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see, like how much of. I mean, she could be like the co-lead. I don't know.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that's the way it's kind of shaping up in the trailer. The focus is on her, so she must be the main character. Um,
It's just
yeah, I know that's kind of yeah.
it's stupid to have
Good.
to even mention it, but it seems like it's unavoidable at this point in culture.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, because they made basically in the new trilogy, the episodic trilogy, Ray is going to be probably the main character, her and Finn.
Right.
Um, you know, it's weird because I feel like they build Finn as being like the new one of the new leads and stuff, but I'm kind of curious as to what they're going to do with the character. You know what I mean? Because obviously, like Ray is going to get trained as a Jedi, but like what's Finn going to do?
Yeah.
Like because he doesn't seem to be like he's a Jedi. So he's going to be like the next like Lando, the guy that like turns into. I'm not saying that 'cause he's black.
Right.
I'm saying it because like that's what happened with Lando. It's like they brought him in and he helped them, and then he became a general.
Right.
So I'm kind of wondering if they're bringing in this guy from the First Order and they're going to make him into some like military leader, or something like that, to like lead the resistance. Be like Princess Leia's right hand soldier, like Poe Dameron's her right hand pilot. You know what I mean? Like, is that what they're going to do? So yeah, it is another female lead. Well, probably because they're going to do a Han Solo movie, which is obviously a male lead. So I think they might just be
Yeah.
even it a little bit. I don't know.
I don't hearing you talk about like what's going to happen to Finn, it kind of occurs to me actually now that we're kind of 6 months. We've had 6 months to, um, you know, watch episode 7 and kind of digest it and everything. I actually kind of don't care what happens to Finn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I kind of like I don't really feel invested in him as a character. I kind of could take it or leave it. Like I almost feel like
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it could go either way, but I don't know. I almost feel like he was just sort of a plot device to facilitate Ray or
Yeah.
something. I don't know. I mean, I hate reducing it to stuff like that, but just you talking about it made me realize like I kind of don't give a fuck about this character.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't think I really care about him yet either. I say yet
Yeah.
because I'm curious to see what they're gonna do. But yeah, it almost seemed like he was just there for convenience. He broke out Poe. He like quote unquote discovered Ray
Yeah.
and ran off with her. You know what I mean? So like he, and like yeah, I guess like you can look at it in the Star Wars universe, like the Force works in mysterious ways or
Right.
whatever. And somehow like led him to these people to help. Because and I think his background is there's little information on it. You just know he was a stormtrooper who was basically bred and raised as a stormtrooper, so you don't really know where he came from. And there's still the rumors that he could be Lando's kid, because Maz Kanata says, I've seen your eyes before. Like I know you, but I don't know you. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I guess it's, like you said, I don't at this point. I don't really care either, but it's going to depend on what they eventually do with him.
Well, so I
Are they
think,
going to make
yeah.
him important, or you know?
I guess that's why I say I could take it or leave it. Like he's kind of on teetering on the edge of, well, they could do something cool and it could turn into something, and hopefully it will.
Yeah.
And it could also just end up being forgettable. I do like the idea of a defected stormtrooper. I think
Mm.
that's got some potential, like story potential. Um, yeah, and like you said, the I've seen your eyes before is another little hook to get you kind of like, interesting. Where's that gonna go?
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I don't know. I just never really thought about it before.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the big problems with Force Awakens that a lot of um, a lot of talk after the fact was, going into it, like you had so many questions, and very little of those questions were answered. And on top of that, they added even more questions on top of the questions that weren't answered. So
Right.
now going into episode 8, there's even more questions and we've had the first movie of this trilogy. It's like, man, like we were like kind of okay, yeah, it's Han and Leia's kid, and yeah, she's a Jedi, and yeah, they found Luke, but it's like they didn't explain a lot of stuff,
Right.
and it's like, man, like there's even more, like they talked about the Knights of Ren, but you only see them in her vision, so what do they have to do with anything? And that nonsense of like who's Rey? Like who,
Yeah.
like is it Luke's kid? Is it Obi-Wan's kid? Is it someone's kid? It's just like, why can't it just be Rey? It doesn't have to be someone's kid, but there's so many questions
Yeah.
about
Well,
it. It's like,
like obviously, in any kind of ongoing entertainment, um, you know, you're gonna have like certain things kind of left unexplained just to continue like the interest.
yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to a point where like there's a greater portion of things that aren't explained than are, it's kind of like, I don't know, like it's a little bit of a turnoff, right? It's kind of frustrating for the viewer. I
Well,
don't
in
know.
this case, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like there's way too much to keep me invested in it. It's like I want some answer,
Well, that's the
you
thing
know.
too. It works against itself. It's like, it just takes one or two to keep me interested. I don't need a fucking
Yeah.
stack of paperwork to be like, oh shit, wait, how is this resolved and what does this mean?
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
like,
yeah. It's like, well, good.
I was just gonna say, if a lot of these things aren't gonna pan out to mean anything or just kind of like there, then fucking why establish them? Like
Yeah,
that's the stuff
exactly.
that gets me. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Well, they have a whole lot of ends to tie up, with the next two movies, just
Right.
considering what's laid down. It's like, man, it's crazy. Well, yeah, I think back, like, okay, what if I was alive when like the first Star Wars came out? Like, what would be like my questions going into the sequel? What happened to them after they blew up the Death Star? That's basically it,
Yeah.
And maybe like, is Luke gonna be like a full Jedi? What is a Jedi? Obi-Wan seemed to be go out like a little punk bitch.
Yeah, it'd be
What are these? Yeah, it's
like
just like,
what happened to Obi-Wan would be mine, and then yeah, like you said, like well, okay, what happens next? But see, the thing is, it's just like a lot of movies that ended up like spawning a bunch of sequels. Um, I don't know that I would have a lot of questions just because that the first one seemed like a standalone movie. They have the medal ceremony at the end. Everybody's happy. That's like that's it.
yeah. Well, it could. Well, I think they did it that way because he didn't know if he was going to be able to do a
Yeah.
sequel. So yeah, it could stand as its own movie in its own right if there was never any other Star Wars movie. Because like, oh, that one movie Star Wars, that was pretty cool.
Well,
Like, and
right.
that's
Well,
it.
that's why it was always until 1981. That's why it was just called Star Wars. It didn't have this A New Hope tacked on until then. You know
Or
what I mean?
episode, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a very strong case that is a standalone movie, really. Um, it's kind of like a lot of people forget to come back to the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. A lot of people forget that the early, I don't know about marketing, but like, I guess point or reason for making Batman Begins, and the reason that they have the Joker card at the end is that was actually originally made as a prequel for the '89 Batman, and then all of a sudden that got thrown out the window when like it did such big business and everything.
Yeah.
And as time's gone on, like nobody talks about that anymore. But I mean,
Yeah. That's a good point.
I don't know. It's weird how things kind of evolve.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you could still make the. Well, no, you couldn't because the Joker was in the second one. and he was in Tim Burton's Batman. I was gonna say you could probably make the case that all those events like happened around or before, you know what I mean, or before or after,
Right.
but not when there's two Jokers because the Joker obviously died
Right.
in Tim Burton's Batman because he fell off the building. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, interesting stuff. I guess they're gonna do another one of those Batman video games that I like too.
Oh yeah.
The Arkham series, which is weird because it's like the Arkham Knight game kind of I thought wrapped it up pretty good. But yeah, I guess they're making another one.
It's actually like continuing the series, or is it like using the same elements and like starting something related?
Shit. You know, I don't want to say it's the same. Because I don't really know too much about it. I just heard it, and I kind of was like disgusted already because I thought it was done. But now it's like, I'm more disgusted in the fact that it's another game I'm gonna have to buy than really it being there. But because in Arkham Knight, I mean, yeah, it totally wrapped it up. I mean, he like faked his own death and no more Batman. He like actually unmasked himself on camera, so everybody knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman. But then he went home and his mansion blew up. So I think he made a run for it like he did in Dark Knight Rises.
That was Origins. Is that the third one?
No, it was it went Arkham
Knight?
Asylum, Arkham City. They were sequential, and then Arkham Origins is the third one, and that takes place before Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. And then the fourth one was Arkham Knight, which is the last game sequentially. So Origins was basically like how Batman, it was like a young, untested Batman, and the Joker was just like coming about. But in like the Joker is like the main character in the first and second one.
Right.
So, and he actually dies in the second one too, like dead, like completely dead.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm trying to find an article about it. Where did you hear it on?
I can't remember.
Oh.
They were just making it up.
Oh, I have like one that might be about it. It says Batman Arkham 2017 10 perfect ways to continue the franchise.
Yeah, cause I'm pretty sure they announced it that it's coming out, but I don't know. Yeah, who knows? I don't know. What?
There's already 5 games, you said? Or
there's 4. There's 4.
Huh. Because
in that series.
This article starts off by saying 5 years, 5 games, 3 comic book series, and an animated film later, the Arkham series has managed to become one of the most successful interpretations of Batman yet. So what the hell?
Yeah, that's weird.
Huh.
There's only been 4 games. Yeah. Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight, Arkham Origins. I'm not missing one.
Was there an Origins 2? Because I'm seeing stuff for that too.
Maybe that's what the new one is. It might be a prequel.
Maybe. Okay.
Because like I said, the Arkham Origins is like basically kind of like Batman Begins for video game series because like he's like it's like Lieutenant Gordon. It's not Commissioner Gordon. He's not friends with the police. Like the police are after him too.
Right.
The Joker. Nobody knows who the Joker is. Like he just makes his name in that game. You know what I mean? So like there's obviously material that you could put in between.
Right.
It kind of goes into like the origin of Joker a little bit too, like the Red Hood character and how he became the way he is and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it really is good. I mean, I kind of wish you had, being that you like Batman as much as you do, I kind of wish you had like a Xbox or something so you could play those games. They're pretty phenomenal.
I played the first one. Yeah, I fucking loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the rare games where you actually felt like it did it justice. You actually felt like you were Batman. It's crazy.
Yep. Agreed.
Boom.
And I'm not even really that huge on video games. Like, I like them. I like the ones I like a lot, but it's just I've never beyond like once you got past like Nintendo 64, I never really got caught up in it so much. I don't know. I don't know if they're like, I don't know if video games evolve beyond me or what. Like some of it's a little overwhelming sometimes. But like there are still certain ones that I, really like a lot and could sit and play like constantly all day. So I mean, they definitely still have an appeal.
Well, they've definitely taken the form of, I mean, this is in a good way. The way kind of like movies are now, where there's like a lot of Obviously the graphics are a lot better now.
Yeah.
The engines that power them are more, powerful. But yeah, they've actually taken storytelling to like a new level. Like, with the advent of like the more interactive gameplay and the better graphics, they can actually craft a decent story every once in a while. Yeah, if you like just go on YouTube and watch like a Watch Mojo video, like the best storylines in video games or whatever. Some of them are great,
Right.
but the ones with the good stories are typically the role playing games that take 60 hours to
Yeah.
finish, which do get complicated and there's so many things to do. And but yeah, there's been great stories now. It's not just like this linear thing like Mario Brothers used to be, where it's like save the princess.
Yeah.
It's definitely gotten more complicated than that, and then the Batman games are a testament to that. It's not just like the fact that it's awesome, gameplay where you can like be Batman the detective and the sneaky guy and ass kicker. Like there's a good story behind it. And a lot of it is the relationship between Batman and the Joker, and it's almost like they have to. If either one of them doesn't exist, like they don't have a purpose, and that's kind of like it delves deep into that mythology. It's great,
Right.
and it's just all in one. Yeah, so they've definitely evolved, you know, past what they used to be,
Yeah, for sure.
no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway,
But
yeah,
yeah,
kind of,
I'll get one someday. I keep meaning to like I at least want a 360.
yeah.
But
Well, yeah, a lot of, you can get, um, right now they have backward compatibility, and they're releasing Xbox 360 games you can play on Xbox One. So it's almost pointless at this point to get a 360. To be honest with you,
well, it's just super cheap though, isn't it?
yeah, that's true. They're a lot cheaper, definitely. And they still, the games are still out there. GameStop has tons of used games and stuff like
And
that.
can't
So
you don't you like have to be like online or something stupid to use Xbox One?
some of some of the games do require internet, and that is one of the things that makes me mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's games you can play offline, definitely.
Mm.
But for to have the best experience, like you would need, internet and have an Xbox Live account. It's
Right.
like $60 for a year, so it's not that bad.
Mm.
Or it's like $10 a month, or you pay a lump sum of $60 and get it for the whole year.
Right.
So it's basically like half off. You buy it at once. But a lot of the games you do, some games are made just for playing online, which
Yeah.
I tend to shy away from those because I don't like having a game that's the only experience you can have. I like to be able to play like a solo campaign or a story by myself without needing the help of other people. But it's weird because there's this game I'm playing now. It's a Tom Clancy franchise. It's called The Division, and even if you're doing like the solo part of the game, like you still need to be online, which is dumb.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know why that's a prerequisite for it. But yeah, it's really annoying when it comes into like having to be online to play games. It's like, but they clearly put it on the box that like the internet is required to play this game, so like you can avoid getting in that situation where you buy it and then realize, oh shit, I don't have the internet, I can't play
Right.
this game. But yeah, it's getting to be more of an online driven business,
Right.
unfortunately.
Well, see, for some
But
reason I thought that it was like you needed your console to be connected to the internet, period, for it to even like work for you.
I think that I'm not sure if this is correct, but I remember when it first came out or when they were developing it, they said that, and people lost their minds.
Yeah, that turned me
And
off.
yeah, and I think they might have changed it where it's not required, but I don't really know. It's never been a problem for me because I've had Xbox Live and the internet since I've had an Xbox 360.
Right.
So to me, it was like a non-issue. But yeah, I can see where it would be an issue, and it was stupid. But um, yeah, mine still works if I don't have an internet connection.
Okay.
So I'm assuming you don't have to have it, but obviously that's like that serves as like my Fire or my Roku stick too, because I can have
Right.
I have my Time Warner Cable app on it, I've got Netflix on it, you put Hulu on it, all those things that you subscribe to you can get through your Xbox. So it's like one entertainment hub in one thing.
Right.
Games. It has a Blu-ray player on it, so I watch my Blu-ray movies on my Xbox. So yeah, it's definitely worth it. And right now, they're even slashing prices. I mean, Amazon, you can get like a crazy good bundle for like $300. That has like controllers, games. It has like the 1 terabyte hard drive,
Right.
which is crazy. I have like a 500 gigabyte hard drive, and it's still I only have about 10% of it left now, but we have like 12 or 13 games downloaded because the kids play it too. So.
Right.
Anyway, enough of the Xbox advertisement.
Well, are any of those Batman games only on the Xbox One?
They only, I think, just Arkham Knight was Xbox One only. The other three, Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Origins, I had that on Xbox 360.
So if I wanted to play them all, I'd have to get Xbox One anyway.
See, I can't remember. I didn't even look because when Arkham Knight came out, I already had the Xbox One.
Right.
So I wasn't paying attention to whether or not. I would just go like on GameStop and just see if it was made for 360. But yeah.
Well, it's probably better in Xbox One than 360, right? There's like a.
What do you mean?
Like the quality and the graphics and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's noticeably different. It's not like it doesn't like blow it out of the park or anything like that. Or
I mean, there's nothing like 360 is awesome. I mean, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was the thing for years anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's not a huge noticeable difference. I mean, I can definitely tell the difference, but it's not like insane. I mean, you can get like I know a lot of websites like IGN when they review a game, they'll do like split screen comparisons to like the graphics between the different systems, because they're different software and stuff like that. So.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see. Yeah, I wish there was like a video game solution for like a one-stop solution for all of my like weird little niche video game interests. Like, cause I'm a really big like old school Nintendo guy too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I want to be able to do that, but then it's like then you gotta get like a Nintendo console and download their old game. Like I wish I could just get like a video game box, you know what I mean, and then just get it all.
Yeah,
for one low price.
I think they made one for the older systems where it's like an all-in-one thing where you can get like Sega, Super Nintendo, all that stuff on one. But yeah, obviously you can't do it with that and the new stuff.
You're right.
So that which kind of stinks, but yeah, I mean right now Xbox is doing okay because like I said they have the backward compatible games for 360, so you can just like download most of them for free. Like I got 2 the other day that were free, but you just download it right to the box. Like you don't even need a disc or anything like that. And that's the other thing too. All this stuff like you don't even have to buy a game disc anymore if you don't want to. You can just go to the Xbox store and download the game without a disc, and it's always on your system. And then if you want to make room for it, you just get rid of that. But then there's a little section like ready to download, so you can download it again if you already paid for it.
Right.
So, but yeah, so I still go to the GameStop though because I like to keep places like that in business or help out, because it's like a the quote unquote brick and mortar store. So
that's
but yeah, so it's obviously up to your personal preferences what you want to do. I would recommend the Xbox just because all the franchises I like that are I like Halo and that's Xbox only, but
right.
Whatevs. Well, I'm fresh out of topics. I mean, we've been rambling on about video game consoles for 10 minutes. So.
I pretty much would just get like the Batman games and fucking Grand Theft Auto 5 and be good for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, games like that, like the Grand Theft Auto, I mean, I think you can play that almost like 60, 70 hours before you finish all the content. And see, I like games like that. We can keep playing them, and not be done with it,
Well, that type of game specifically is like, it's got to be considered like the best value for your dollar because you can do either one. You can do like this giant expansive story which has a lot of stuff to like check off, before you're done, or you can just play it as like free reign. I mean,
yep.
It's. I mean, you can get a lot of people are like they get a game and it's like they fucking beat it in 3 days or 2 days or whatever it is, and it's like this fucking didn't really wasn't challenging, it didn't offer me enough, and it's like, well, a game like that, I mean, yeah, you can sit there for 3 days straight and just beat it, but like you can't say it doesn't offer a lot to fucking do.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I mean, if you're going to sit down and play it 10 hours a day in one sitting and then finish it in 3 days, like, yeah, there's a lot of content. You just played it for 30 hours. I mean, I think a game that has between 20 and 30 hours of content is probably like the norm. where I wouldn't feel like I was ripped off. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when you get above like 30 hours, when you get to like the 50, 60 hours, that's when you get the value. Where it's a long, expansive, immersive story, like a
Exactly.
game like the Elder Scrolls. I'm sure you've heard of them.
Yeah.
That franchise.
Skyrim. Is that the Skyrim
Yeah,
stuff? Yeah. Okay.
Skyrim. Yeah, that's the one. That's the only one I've played actually. Yeah, I played that. I think my timer on that, after doing all the storylines, visiting every area I possibly could, and doing stuff, I think it was like 55 hours.
Yeah.
And then they made an online version of the game where you play online and do stuff. And I never did that. I mean, I just played the one player,
Right.
quote unquote campaign. And there's so many, like if you do just the main storyline, like yeah, you'll finish it in like 10, 12 hours. But if you do the secondary storyline and everything before you finish the main story, yeah, it was like between 50 and 60 hours. It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
that's a valuable game because you can play it,
Yeah.
forever.
That's another really great one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you just have to. I mean, before if you ever get into it, just like read reviews and stuff, and they usually give you, how much of a replay value it has.
Right.
I'm very. It's for good reason. I mean, you're spending $60 for a brand new game. Like it better not be a ripoff.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
So I remember a game, unfortunately, that was a ripoff for 360 was Conan. I was really excited because it was like one of those like third person like hack and slash type God of War games.
Right.
I bought that when it came out. In the whole entire game, it was only like 8 hours long, like complete ripoff. Like it was so disappointing. Yeah,
Damn.
8 hours. That was it. Yeah, and that's like nothing. Like I said, it's got to be around like the 20-30 mark to be worth it.
Right.
8 hours, ridiculous.
No, there's always those stories of like, yeah, really shitty games that just cash in on a name or something.
You know,
They've
indeed.
they've been around since video games. I mean, that's what people always criticize, that fucking ET Atari game that supposedly like ruined Atari forever, and
Yeah.
they buried in the desert.
Yeah, that was fun. I remember I could watch the video about that where they actually did bury
Yeah.
all those cartridges or whatever. Now they're like super valuable because they're rare or something.
Well, did you talk about that documentary they made where they went
Yeah.
and dug them up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fucking crazy. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. I can't believe they did that. That's nuts. That's just so weird.
Yeah.
So weird.
He
Well,
was,
it's like that documentary, like The King of Quarters or whatever it was, that like those two guys that had like the Donkey Kong rival. And that one guy was a complete prima donna asshole about it. It was crazy.
the King of Kong, a fistful of
King
quarters,
of Kong.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, when I say King of Quarters,
Yeah, but no, that is like the original crazy video game documentary. Like that thing was entertaining as fuck. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember there's that movie Fred Savage was in too. What the hell was that called?
Oh, The Wizard.
Yeah, The Wizard. Where it was
Yeah.
like the kid was like a video game prodigy, and they had to get to like the video game convention to play Mario 3, and that was before Super Mario Brothers 3 came out to buy, and everyone was like, oh, "That's so awesome!" And like I didn't get it.
It was basically a big commercial for it.
Yeah.
Dude, Mario 3 was a huge fucking deal when that came out.
Oh yeah, I mean, considering how different it was compared to like the original, yeah, because Mario 2 was lame.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
super disappointment.
I've come to appreciate it more like as time's gone on, but yeah, at the time it's like, what the fuck is this?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
yeah, he was thinking, yeah.
I would say it's quirky and stuff, so like, you can look into that more when you're an adult or like older. But like, yeah, it had nothing to do with the other ones because it was like a totally different game or something.
Well, yeah, he was like it was like in a dreamland. Like at the end of the game when you beat it, like you see him sleeping in bed, and he had dreamed the whole thing up, which is why it was kind of bizarre,
Right.
And everyone was like, "What?"
Well, that's another the story of Mario 2 is actually another really fascinating. I don't know if there's a documentary, but if you look into it, it's pretty crazy.
Mm.
Because it actually in reality it's a different game in Japan, and then they just took that game and just plugged in Mario characters to meet a deadline or something, and that was your Mario 2.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I think that's why they did the cop out dream sequences in the end.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre for what Mario was. So they're just like, I know, let's do this.
But it's weird because Mario 3, it kind of in a lot of ways takes the best parts of Mario 1 and what became Mario 2 and kind of puts them back together in a way that makes sense. Like that's.
Well, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say I'd be surprised if that wasn't the best-selling Nintendo Entertainment System game ever.
Yeah, probably. Well, you're right about meshing the elements because, like, the first Mario game was fun, but it was like very blocky and like linear. Like the
Yeah.
graphics weren't great. But then Mario 2 added like elements of the gameplay, like you could pick up stuff and go through doors, and it wasn't just like and it was more of like a 3D kind of graphic. So Mario 3 took like the awesome gameplay of one, melded it with like the new features and look of two, and made Mario 3, and that's why it was awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it was completely like you said. It was I remember specifically getting that when it came out and playing it like forever.
Oh yeah, and that's another at the time like the replay value on that is huge to this day. I mean, even though I fucking know all the music, all of the worlds, all the scenes like the back of my hand, like I'll still sit down and play it all. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I just pull the trigger. I don't know why. It's fucking cool. And
Well, it's a lot of nostalgia too now.
Yeah,
You're like,
definitely.
oh, let's play it.
Yeah.
Cool. Ugh,
Wow.
that is me stretching. My butt hurts. Been sitting here for 2 hours.
We're
You
back.
tell people we haven't done this in a while because I am complaining about things.
We're back with
Well,
a ornery vengeance.
yeah. Okay.
I'm actually looking
Well,
up real quick.
Yeah, what are you looking up?
Just because I want to know now the best-selling original Nintendo games, just out of curiosity. And we have a list of the top 30. So let's see. Oh, it's gonna be one of those fucking like, click to the next photo lists.
Yeah.
I fucking hate the. Oh, okay. No, I can't do that. Ah. Good thing I can edit this out.
Yeah, we'll just edit that out.
I just want a text list, you know what I mean?
I don't want pictures and an explanation. Just tell me.
And then 30 pop-ups. Ugh. Okay, so here we go. And now my computer wants to be all slow and dumb. I can't tell if this is in descending or ascending order. It might be Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
I can see that, or like Castlevania, or like The Legend of Zelda, or something like that too.
Yeah. No, actually, I think it's going bigger. It's sold more as the list goes down, and Punch Out was the first one, so I guess that's the least on the list. Let's see. Wow, that Kung Fu game, that like basic game I used to have, is pretty high up there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I remember that. That was like my first game besides the Duck Hunt Mario Brother combo that came with it. That was the first game I had.
Yeah, me too. I actually went to the store and bought that like new. That's the only Nintendo game I ever like bought new. Everything else I got used. So okay, I guess no surprise here. It's probably, I don't know why it technically probably shouldn't count because it like came with it, but it's the original Super Mario / Duck Hunt that everybody got with it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the number one, 40.24 million.
Yeah.
Number two, of course, is Super Mario 3. So, and
Well, we were close. You were close.
That's quite the drop though, 17.28 million.
Yeah, I know Tetris was up there too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But actually, number 3 is Mario 2, oddly enough.
Yeah, Mario.
Yep. And then Zelda, and then Tetris is number 5. Yep. Huh.
Cool.
And then right back to Mario. Dr. Mario is number 6. I never would have guessed that. Which is basically like the Mario version of Tetris.
Yeah, because it was like pills and stuff too. That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like kind of getting that imagery for the kids. Like, yeah, but these, remember Blades of Steel too? That was a good one. I'm looking on my phone.
Yeah, it's not even on the list.
Blades of Steel, Excite Bike.
Wait a minute.
RC Pro-Am, Rad Racer, Top Gun. I remember a lot of these games.
Yeah. The regular Nintendo Ice Hockey's on the list, but not Blades of Steel.
Yeah, that's weird because I thought Blades of Steel was, well, from what I remember. I don't know if it was better, but I always liked Blades of Steel.
Is the much superior game, definitely.
Yeah. I remember Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. That was popular too. I'm surprised that was lower on the list than what it should have been.
Yeah. That's about middle of the road. I mean, yeah, that's in like, if you say Nintendo games, that's one of the first few that you mentioned, I think.
God, Mike, what is that other one? I can't think of it right off the top of my head. Mike Tyson's Punch Out. And then Contour was a big one, too.
Oh, yeah. With the fucking code.
Oh, Tecmo Bowl. Remember that football game?
Absolutely.
That was pretty good. Well, there's our nostalgia. You can probably cut this out, too, but I think Cole is home off the bus, so he's going to come barging in here in a minute, so we'll have to cut that out. But I'm good. Huh?
I said ask him what he thinks about Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, what do you think about Ninja Turtles?
What's that?
Yeah.
They're stupid. Yeah, we can. I mean, that's pretty much it.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about the new Ninja Turtles movie? 6.
Hey, I was gonna say 6.
So not that exciting, but not like completely indifferent. So
yeah.
There you have it.
Let's be honest, even 6 is probably being generous.
Yeah, definitely.
That's about what I would have guessed. Okay.
Cool. There you go. Thanks for your input. Snack.
You made the show. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
good way to end it. Go from there.
Perfect.
All right. Later.
Peace.